welcome to the Phlo Systems webinar on digitalizing the international supply chain. But before I go anywhere, I'd just like to hand over to the founder and CEO of Phlo Systems, Saurabh Goyal, to give the words of welcome. Saurabh.
Thank you, Ted. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Saurabh Goyal. I'm the founder of Phlo Systems, and I welcome all of you to this webinar. I'm hopeful that today's session will result into some interesting conversations between us and businesses who are keen to understand the impact of digitalization on their operations. So thank you for attending and welcome you all to this interesting webinar.
That's great. Thank you very much, Saurabh. So let me just introduce myself. I'm Ted George, founder and chief narrative officer of Kleos Advisory, and I will be chairing the webinar today. So what do we have on our agenda for today? I'm going to start with a short presentation looking at the challenges of managing the global supply chain and areas that need addressing in order to unlock trade and financing opportunities. Then we will be followed this with a fireside chat with Saurabh Goyal and Christophe Bourges, a senior advisor, a strategic advisor at Phlo Systems, where we will unpack these issues and explore how the company is taking a fresh approach to digitalizing its clients' supply chains. We will also have two case studies of Phlo Systems in action, the first on an SME commodity trader, the second on a product in development to digitalize UK customs procedures. Sorry, one moment. And then we will finish off with an expert panel bringing together Phlo Systems partners and clients to explore how we can work together to scale this technology and get the most out of it. So a full agenda for today's webinar. So the global supply chain, we've seen huge amounts of problems in the global supply chain in the last 2 or 3 years. As you can imagine, with COVID, we've had disruption, we've had shortages, but they go far beyond just the short-term disruption that we've seen, because there are profound problems with the way the global supply chain works, and they hugely cause problems specifically for small and medium-sized traders. So, sorry, 1 minute. So if we take the average size or a typical value chain, for example, cotton in this case, you can see clearly here that there are many different players. You have the producers on the left, they have a whole series of relationships with banks and off-takers. In the middle, you have the cotton ginners, you have people who are also weaving the cotton, the spinners and the garment makers, shipping firms, and ultimately onto retailers. And there are multiple relationships within this. This means there isn't some kind of single value chain. There are many parts of it operating independently. This leads to a lot of inefficiency and a lot of blockages. And you can really see the problem here if you look at what the ideal commodity value chain is supposed to look like. This is a graphic of it. You can see that basically at the bottom, we have the suppliers, and this is where R&D and finance come in, and inputs. That goes to the farmers who produce the crop. It moves to the middle of the chain where it's processed and manufactured. It's then exported, retailers, distributors, and ultimately to the consumer. And in this perfect world, there is financing that flows along it and follows that kind of cascade through the chain along with the risk. And ultimately, everything is resolved nicely at the end, and you get more money back than you started with. The reality is that it's disjointed. Information flows very poorly, particularly at the beginning of the value chain as well. And that means most of the resources and the financing is at the end of the chain. The big multinationals, the big trading houses. The small and medium-sized traders and companies are totally cut out. They don't get access to not only the finance, but the data and the means to understand it. And that is something that needs addressing. Now, another big issue which is out there, and I'm sure you're familiar with, is there is still, even with digitalization, far too much paperwork. These are examples I've got here. I mean, if you're thinking of typical deals, you've got your bill of lading, your cargo freight manifest, freight invoices, warehouse receipts, contracts, certificates of origin, customs declarations, LCs, it just goes on and on. And the thing is, all of these bits of data interconnect. They're all relevant for how you manage credit, how you decide to invest in something or allow financing to go ahead. And therefore, if they're all being manually input in different places as well, you have numerous holdups in the system, even if you've digitized one part of it as well. Not just do you have all this documentation, Today, everyone is just overloaded with data. Just think of the amount of emails with information in there which is relevant to the business. Just think of the amount of documents which interrelate, or how you have certain information in one kind of spreadsheet and then you have other information in this system, and so much of it all at the same time. How do you respond to 32,000 alerts? You really need to have the right kind of technology to address this in order to achieve that. And the trouble is that even the big companies out there, which actually are very strong in terms of what they do, you think of these big multinationals with the resources to invest in huge data management systems, they're all sitting in silos, essentially all storage, no action. There is very little interconnectivity between these systems, a lot of duplication of effort and huge wasted opportunities. A typical big multinational has 20 CRM systems operating simultaneously. You can be sure a lot of them don't even know about each other. Now, what this means on the ground, if I can give you an example from my own work. A couple of years ago, I was working on a project for fair trade, looking at cocoa cooperatives in Côte d'Ivoire and also in Costa Rica, and trying to understand how they manage their data. And you can see there on the left, that's a typical field warehouse for cocoa. On the right as well, typical cocoa farmers in Latin America. The thing which became abundantly clear is they've got plenty of data, but it's all over the place. So you have multiple data in one system, which is not connected with something else. It's on people's laptops, it's in PDAs, it's in photocopies, it's written on the wall. It's everywhere. And so to try and get a grip on all this data is very, very difficult. That makes it very hard to finance these kind of deals and this kind of value chain. You're just so unsure. And it's not that data doesn't exist, it's just that it can't be accessed and put together and handled in the right way. And that's why there needs to be a much better approach to managing data. Now, on top of that, there is another imperative, which I'm sure everyone is aware of at the moment in the world, which is everything to do with sustainability and ESG. Today, if you are involved in business, and particularly in the international supply chain, traceability and transparency are essential. They're not just about knowing where the goods are. They're not just about stamping out fraud. They're about tracing the impact that these things have in terms of sustainability. And we can see some examples there. If you look in the top middle, that is Walmart. They have a blockchain system now with a simple code you can scan any of the fruit that goes through their system right back to the field where it was grown. On the left there, that's something I saw in Côte d'Ivoire that Cargill is developing, which is a PDA which links up to the weighing scales and to a code on a tag of the cocoa you can see there, and therefore to try and digitalize it. And top right, you can see there, Fairtrade and Rainforest Alliance have been pushing very hard the transparency and the sustainability angle of agriculture. But you need data to prove that. And you need data as well to understand properly the negative impacts, like you can see bottom left, the destruction of protected forest land for cocoa. After 2 or 3 seasons, the land is useless and the forest can't grow back because the soil is exhausted. Or bottom right, issues of child labor in the cocoa sector, but of course in many other sectors as well. So you've got to have good data if you're going to, first of all, find out where these abuses are occurring, but also if you're going to manage it. And this all ties back to having a very good data flow. Now, it's not that there aren't options out there. There are many ERPs out there, for managing your enterprise resources. The most common ones that people know, SAP, Oracle, Sage. There are many others as well. But the real issue with these data services, they were not designed for traders. They are expensive and complex to implement. They're really not serving what is required of a lot of the value chain out there and in the supply chain, which is affordability and access. And the answer is definitely in the cloud. And it is this new generation of cloud services which is really changing the picture. Because in the past, if you wanted to be able to manage this kind of complexity that you might have in a value chain, everything from purchases through to sales, to inputs, to transport, you would essentially need to install massive amounts of tech in your office. Today, you need a laptop and you need a connection to the internet. And you have the possibility to access the computing power of the planet through your service provider in the cloud and give you access to these tools, which before were only available to very big companies. So cloud services are changing it, and Phlo systems are part of that kind of company who are now coming in and offering these kind of solutions, which before would have been impossible without this tech. So there's a lot to address in the supply chain. There are a lot of challenges, and we want to look today at how we are deploying tech to try and address them and actually start facilitating trade and facilitating finance. So thank you for your attention for that presentation. I think what I'm going to do now is I would like to move straight on to our fireside chat, which will unpack these challenges and explore some of the solutions that are currently being developed. So I would like to invite back, if I could, Sohrab, and also bring in Christophe Borges, Senior Strategic Advisor at Phlo Systems, to join me for the chat. Excellent. There you are. So I wonder if we could go straight into our discussion then, Sohrab and Christophe. Maybe if I could start with you, Sohrab, because the thing is, as we can see clearly from that poll there, digitalization is nothing new. I mean, it's been going on for my entire life. So why is it the global supply chain, and especially commodity trade, has failed to reap the benefits of digitalization compared with industries like banking or manufacturing?
Right. Thanks, Ted, for the question. So when we compare with industries like banking or manufacturing, we see that they always had one or two core compelling reasons to invest heavily into IT. For example, in banking, one of the core operations is to electronically transfer funds, which requires basic infrastructure backbone. They are also heavily regulated, which demands tons of relevant and timely information to be made available to regulators and compliance agencies on demand. If you look at manufacturing businesses, they have the focus on quality and initiatives such as Six Sigma, which requires monitoring, control, and data processing from every aspect of their manufacturing system. On the other side, in supply chain and international trading sector, apart from the compliance to customs regulation and international trading laws, there never has been a core compelling reason for the business to invest into digitalization. The rationale of investment in supply chain management was always efficiency. And whenever it comes to IT projects, usually these kind of projects have lower ROIs than putting that money into an additional trade or acquiring, say, a physical asset, at least from the perspective of the traders. So basically what has happened is that international traders have traditionally invested less than 2% of their gross margins into IT systems, compared to banking and manufacturing sector, which have invested as much as 15 to 20% of their gross margins into digital initiatives. So at the end of the day, it is basically an investment problem. However, things are changing now. It seems that customers are now asking for things like traceability, proof of climate impact, proof of sustainability in supply chains, etc., which will force traders to invest more into IT. There are also other more recent transient impacts due to COVID, the Russia-Ukraine situation, dramatic rise in cost of freight, etc., which is now forcing businesses into having not just highly efficient, but highly flexible supply chains, which can be enabled only if there is sufficient focus on digitalization also. So we believe that, yes, in coming days, we will see more and more digitalization of supply chain management, especially for international traders.
Yeah, and this is what's so interesting, because we're also seeing the evolution as well of ERPs, these enterprise resource planning systems which are out there. Now, of course, they're nothing new, but I think the thing is the existing systems out there actually fall very short of what traders want, because they really need a system to manage commodity trading risk. So how is the kind of system that you're thinking of developing going to be different from existing ERPs? And also, how can it enhance what is out there at the moment? I don't know if Christophe, or do you want to go first?
Yeah. So you're absolutely right. When it comes to ERP systems, specifically for physical traders, it's a big mess out there. It's not that SAP and Oracle do not have an industry version for trading sector. However, their templates are extremely complex and difficult to configure for any business, and therefore they are not very popular. So in fact, most trading businesses will not use the existing templates in these large systems, but they will hire consultants to customize the generic version of SAP or Oracle to their specific requirements. And these projects are notoriously long and expensive and take a significant amount of top management focus away from day-to-day businesses. Therefore, traditional ERPs are fit only for large trading firms who are committed to, say, 5 years of implementation and hundreds of millions in implementation cost. even when implemented, the front office traders and the risk managers, they do not find these systems suitable for their needs. And our organization has to invest separately into a ctrm system on top of ERP to manage all their contract and risk management activities.
Yeah, and actually that gets back to what we saw. That gets back to what we saw in the presentation, this trouble of silos and multiple systems operating together, essentially because they are not initially connected together.
Yes, yes. So our system, OpsPhlo, which is our leading cloud-based ERP solution, has been designed from scratch specifically for international traders and supply chain management industry. So it just is not designed only for traders who sit in between, but also for all the other key players in the supply chain, such as your growers, producers, transport providers, warehouse keepers, quality testers, insurance providers, and trade financiers. In fact, recently we extended our application also to futures brokers, who are also an integral part of that supply chain, especially for commodities which are traded on futures exchanges. So it is built also on latest tech stacks, such as a multi-tenanted system designed for cloud, for consumption on cloud. Our system has a 40-step configuration process, which allows any commodity trader, whether it is for agris, metals, or energy, to start reaping the benefits of the application within weeks rather than within years for large application. So basically what we have done is that we have kind of de-risked the traders and the supply chain partners, where they can quickly onboard our system for a small subscription fee rather than investing multi-millions into upfront capital cost. And it also allows them to connect with all their supply chain partners and therefore start reaping the benefits and seeing the ROI within months rather than waiting for years for that to happen.
Absolutely. Well, that's something I want to get onto, but I wonder if I could bring in Christoph here as well, because one of the big issues here is about data. In order to be able to do this, you've got to have good quality data. It's got to be accurate. It's got to be timely and compatible between the different systems. So what have you seen out there in terms of the challenges to sourcing this data about the supply chain and putting it together?
Well, first of all, I would say, like Sarah was mentioning, is, all the supply chain is a sequence of events. Today, these various sequences are with multiple people, shipping companies, traders, producers, surveillance company, etc., whether digitally or in paper. The benefit of having a one-stop shop or one single cloud-based platform is to allow to integrate all those information, whether they are data through API or whether they're paper input. Today, people use Excel spreadsheets, whatever, and as you said earlier, those systems don't talk to one another. The benefit of having one integrated single flow operation, hence the name of the company, Phlo Systems, okay, is really to provide on a digital based solution the capacity for a single trader or multiple companies to enter those data. And then once the data is there and available, you can not only have a real-time view about what's happening, about where your ship is, about what your P&L is, but you can also try to anticipate what the future can be. Run simulation. What if this shipping cost changes? How does it impact my P&L, for example? When I'm interacting with a bank, if I can show the bank that I have a reliable portfolio of commercial transaction that is linked to a portfolio of hedges, for example, okay, plus all the cost, I can run simulation and tell them that my business is sound, and I'm providing them access to that information, which should allow, and that's the ultimate benefit of all those data, is to build trust. Because with real-time information, then trust can be achieved, then unlocking working capital can also happen.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you said to me before when we were discussing this, it's about helping traders climb the credibility ladder. So I guess this is the process of it. But how is that process in terms of working? Because it must be complex to go from your existing system to something which is much more integrated.
Well, the way the OpsPhlo platform has been built is it's 100% comprehensive. I mean, it's from A to Z, whatever you want. It can allow to integrate all the necessary data that will give a clear picture of a situation. And with that clear picture of a situation, you can then submit, for example, to your bank who is going to lend you, or any trade financier, that information in order to unlock that credibility and unlock the financing. So hence, yes, the credibility ladder is using and integrating similar type of digital platform to get real-time information and build trust. Excellent.
But actually, on that point, there's another kind of breakthrough that you have in your system, which is the ability to provide real-time information. And this is critical because we've talked about the importance of data, but why is it so important to have real-time information? What kind of benefits can that bring?
Well, if you look right now, I mean, I have a lot of former friends and colleagues in banks and in trade finance funds who, for the past 110 days, unfortunately, with the disruption of the war in Ukraine, all markets have been completely dislocated. Volatility like crazy, sometimes multiplied by 2 or 3 if you look at the power market, for example, and any other markets, and the forward curve going up and down like crazy. So being able to have a clear picture of what your commercial situation is, where are my goods, who am I selling them to, what is my expected P&L, and what if it goes up 10% or down 10%? What if freight price goes up 3 times more, etc.? Having that clear picture right now with a click of a button, because you have input all those information into the platform, allows you to pilot the plane, because you have those dashboards, and whatever storm is coming ahead of you, you have those various indicators, and that's really key.
Exactly. It's having the forward visibility as well, rather than such a short window of it as well, and the ability to project on. But I wonder also if we could just talk a bit about the commercial model, because this is something that's interesting. Maybe if I can get your views, Saurabh, here, because one of the biggest stumbling blocks that we've seen to the adoption of new technology is cost. And I tell you, I'm constantly coming across really interesting innovations which are out there, and I'm like, they would be perfect for the supply chain in developing markets. And then everyone's like, yes. And so the initial development cost is about $200,000. And you're straight away saying, hold on, this is never going to happen. So Phlo Systems, as I understand, is specifically designed for services that are affordable for small and medium-sized businesses. So how does the pricing model work, and how do you achieve this affordability and, if you like, adaptability for the smaller and medium-sized company?
Yeah, so initially when we started, our focus was on the small and medium-sized businesses, but now that we have a solution which works very well, we see that even larger businesses are interested in our solution. But in fact, the focus on SMEs at the start was quite useful for us because, as you rightly said, SMEs cannot invest that kind of money. So we had to develop a solution which was very configurable, and even a regular user from an SME business should be able to configure that system easily within, say, 1 or 2 days, and can start using that for their business operations. So what we developed is a very configurable, very modular solution, specifically for international traders. So we do not go much deeper into like complex manufacturing scenarios or banking or payment scenarios, but we focus on the supply chain part, which allowed us to keep the costs low. We developed the solution using very mature but efficient cloud-based technologies rather than developing it on a client-server technology, which most of older ERP solutions are based on. And at the same time, we avoided too much reliance on emerging but very costly technologies like blockchain. So yeah, blockchain is a component which is available on our system, but it is available only as an add-on to customers who can afford it. So by using this, number one, focus on trading businesses. Number two, making sure that we are using efficient but mature technologies. And number three, by designing a configurable solution which any business can use, we have kept the cost extremely low. And in fact, our total cost of operation compared to SAP or any other large ERP solution is, in our opinion, less than 1/10 of the total cost of operation. And we do not charge anything upfront, and it's a subscription-based cost, which again makes the risk of adopting a solution very low for businesses. Because if you go for a large scale solution, there's a large upfront cost, and therefore the cost of moving away from that business is also very huge. But for us, the cost of adopting the solution is very low, which means that in the extreme scenario, if the business feels that the solution is not working for them, they can walk away from that solution also without losing too much. So therefore, we have made the cost of adoption very low and therefore risk-free for small businesses.
Absolutely, lowering the entry barrier, which is one of these key things, and also lowering the exit barrier if you needed to. Knowing you can do that again makes it easier to engage. It's not such a big commitment up front. Well, we've just got time for one more question to ask about, which is the ultimate vision. Oh, sorry, do you want to add something in there as well, Christoph?
I just wanted to make a little analogy, is that unlike other systems where people come and say, I'm going to build a car for you, okay? We have built the car and it's on a rental, fee, as Sorab said. It's a user per month per fee, and you can use the car. If you want.
I think we might have lost Christoph there, unfortunately.
Builds a system that is usable and turnkey, and the configuration of inputting commodities, customers, contacts. I mean, let's say the CRM part, and that is extremely quick to do. And then you can use it. You can drive the plane or drive the car, to go back to my analogy.
Excellent, thanks very much. So just to finish off, just a couple of minutes from each of you, but what do you see in terms of the ultimate vision for Phlo Systems and what you would like to do? Would you like to start, Sorab?
Yeah, so simply put, our vision is to become the platform of choice for international trading and supply chain management businesses, where they can control and manage every aspect of their operations and also get all the business analytics which they need in order to become more efficient.
Beautifully put. And Christoph, how would you describe it?
I'm sorry, I have a bad network, but I hope you can still hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Today, with this platform readily available, our intent, number one, is to deploy it to make it available to as many people as possible. Okay, number one. Number two is to also provide with the platform any other, let's say, option that there could be, because the platform is, as I said, a comprehensive tool, but it can be sliced into usable, let's say, separate application or modules, okay? And some people will only need one module, some people will need another module, some people will want the entire module. And so what I'm trying to say is that there is a lot of versatility into the use and of the OpsPhlo platform, which we have already started to deploy by providing a dedicated solution for lenders, which we call FinPhlo, and also for custom clearance between UK and the EU, which we call TradePhlo, which we'll go upon later on. These are really an illustration of how that entire supply chain and sequence can be sliced and dedicated to dedicated solutions.
That's great. And I think what's great as well is those slices are not silos. They all fit together, because I think what is interesting as well is the whole concept of the idea that you can link together all these different bits of the value chain, which were always separate beforehand. That's great. Okay, well, listen, thank you very much, both gentlemen. I really enjoyed the fireside chat. Thanks to Sorab and Christoph. We'll move on to the next part of the webinar. What we're going to do now is see how these solutions work in practice. And we're going to look at 2 short case studies of Phlo Systems work in action. So the first case study is about helping SME traders capitalize on digitalization of the supply chain. So could I invite Talha Khan, who is Chief Technology Officer of Phlo Systems, and also Mahesh Palyath, Vice President of Torque Commodities, to join us. So I just wonder if I could ask, by asking you to introduce yourself, maybe Mahesh, if you'd like to start first, please.
Yeah, so Torque Commodities, we started back in 2017, primarily doing agri products like cashew and rice. We started small, but we have migrated to the Phlo Systems, and presently we're doing about 4,000 containers a year, and also a handful of ships which we charter. This is all being done with a very small team. We have a team of 5 handling all these shipments, and the system has actually made our process and change management quite rapid, and now we have a global footprint with offices probably everywhere, mainly in West Africa.
Excellent, thank you. And Talha, if you just want to tell us about what you do at Phlo.
Yeah, thanks, Ted. Thanks, Mahesh. My name is Talha Khan. I'm the CTO of Phlo Systems Limited. We started off in 2017, and I mainly look after all of our technological solutions. Was key in designing and implementing OpsPhlo, and we've helped implement the whole solution for Talk as well. So I'll go into that in our discussion.
Excellent, that's fantastic. Well, I wonder if I could start with you, Mahesh. Could you just tell me about some of the biggest challenges that you find in managing your supply chain, particularly when it comes to managing data and flows of documents?
Yeah, so when we started off, and like I said, we are Africa-centric, getting all, the suppliers, logistics, documentation all in one place was very challenging. Africa, getting documents out in time is very difficult. So when we had a system, we had everything in one place. It became very easy for us, be it issuance of contracts, be it issuance of purchase orders, sales orders, invoices. It all became very automated. And we realized that what actually used to take us about 20 days for documentation has come down to probably 5 or 6 days. And that really kind of helps with the cash flow also, because your borrowing costs are less, and things become much easier for us.
Absolutely. So Talha, do you want to talk about maybe some of the things that you've been deploying to try and address these issues, particularly this question of documentation and speeding up flows?
Yeah, sure. As Mahesh said, they work in challenging environments. So they need to handle various different scenarios, from not just standard contracts, but spot sales and third-party trading, so back-to-back trading as well. So we know when you design a system, even to be as flexible as possible, one size doesn't fit all. So we did need to do a bit of customization, and we managed to design it in such a way that it stops the whole, it minimizes user error from going from process to process. Being able to manage all your documents via each transaction as well, help them incredibly. And as you said, having all the data all in one place, you start to see the immediate advantages that you wouldn't necessarily see if you're using multiple systems, or if you've got Excel spreadsheets lying around or anything like that. So being able to look at your business all in one go, having a snapshot of all your data, being able to make those decisions, that was kind of very important.
Yeah, and I know also on your system, what you can do is when there's a visualization, you can just dig down. You can see a certain number, you can click on that and that'll take you through and through and through. So rather than when you see something in a report, as sometimes happens, and you click on it and there's nothing there, or it's just a residual, or someone punched the number in, everything is linked back to something real out there.
Exactly, everything is traceable because it does have an accounting module in there. And if you're working in the finance sector, you need to be able to see where these numbers come from. They can't just appear out of nowhere. And if you're cancelling them or reclassifying them, you need to have the whole trace on that. So it just becomes easier to audit.
Excellent. Well, I wonder, Mahesh, if I could ask you about something specific as well, which I understand that you're working on at the moment, which is all to do with electronic bills of lading. So these have obviously, as a concept, have been around, and there are some in existence, but ultimately it's definitely not something which is standard or general. So what do you want to be able to achieve with electronic bills of lading?
With electronic BLs, our transaction times reduce considerably. Typically, if you're looking at the paper format of BL, it takes you about 5 to 6 days to get it issued, then probably another 4 or 5 days to get it transmitted across to the customer. This time reduces considerably. It probably comes down to a couple of days, probably even a couple of hours, if you're good, with the electronic BL platform. Also, your transaction costs come down considerably. In your traditional model, each BL or the cost of each transaction would be around $50. But with EBLs, it will come down to 25 cents, maybe 50 cents. So that's a lot of money you're talking about. I think if 50% of trade moves over to EBLs, then the industry will save about $4 billion annually.
That's enormous. But what is required to do that, though? Because ultimately, how do you get to an electronic bill of lading system? I guess this is one of the difficult questions: is how do you go from a system which is paper-based or is in some kind of data silo to something which is actually something that can be shared and traded, if you like?
One, it has to be affordable. Two is the technology has to be simple so that a lot of people can understand it. And three, which is most important, it has to be regulated. Presently, we don't have a common platform which is regulating the EDLs, and therefore there's a lot of confusion regarding, transfer of title of goods and the legalities that follow.
And tell me, Talha, from your side, are you hoping to integrate electronic bills of lading? And then sort of what other things do you think that you would be able to help digitalize for traders like Talk?
Yeah, absolutely. So handling all the documents in one system, we already do that. You can upload your documents. We also make use of AI technology in order to read PDFs. So that is one of the things that we are trying to do right now to enable people to upload various different documents and ensure that they get the right information, they reconcile it and check it off, because obviously having data is really important. And as Sora mentioned earlier, we can, our system is completely open. We can interact with other blockchain solutions or have our own blockchain solution in order to, handle electronic bill of ladings, depending on where the industry goes in the future.
Absolutely. Well, look, we've got time for just one final question here as well, which is, what do you think you would like to be able to do in the future going forward? Because, Talk and Phlo have been working together for a while now. But first of all, in terms of vision, Mahesh, what would you like to be able to do, or you're thinking of hoping to do in the future with the system? What are you trying to get to? What's the end point?
With the existing system, we can actually expand our trade. If we started off doing 50 containers probably in 2017, we're doing 4,000 now. And, without investing in additional manpower, I think we can probably take it up to 8, 9, 10,000 containers. And, that saves a lot of money. And that's money well spent. Like Saurabh and Talha mentioned before, this is a subscription-based model, so it really helps us. And the entry levels are quite low, and I think a lot of people should look at systems like Phlo going forward.
Excellent. Well, there must be music to your ears, Talha, to hear that from your client. Definitely.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And certainly in terms of what are you hoping that you can do in terms of the next phases going forward? Because I know that there are various systems and they're gradually being deployed and it's maturing, if you like, as a network.
So right now we believe we're in a strong place when it comes to operations. So we looking at the near future, it's all about how we can get more data in, so like we mentioned with the documents and the bills of lading. And how we can, make it more efficient, one-stop solution for everything. So you don't need other systems. You don't need to integrate with other solutions unless, it's like integrating with a market or something like that.
That's great. Thank you very much. Well, look, thank you, chaps. I'm afraid that's all we had time for, but really good to be able to see how it works in action. So thank you very much to Talha and to Mahesh. You can turn off your cameras and mics now.